Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nick. Just want to do a few announcements before we get to part 2 of Dan Grossman's episode. I want to thank our promotional partner, Let's Design Daily, for promoting the podcast. And if you aren't familiar, check them out. They post amazing design work from designers across the world, and their Instagram is at Let's Design Daily. I also want to promote the Spotify. Go follow on there. Rate 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, subscribe on YouTube, and check out the Discord because we're going to have some great conversation this episode, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. And this episode was a little long, but I just let it ride, and I think there's some amazing gold nuggets that Dan shared with us, so stick around. All right, let's get to it. I'm Nick.
I'm James.
And I'm Dan.
And we are back with Dan Grossman. And if you missed last episode, take a quick second, go back, listen to that one. This will be a continuation. We were talking to Dan Grossman about his plethora of experiences working at nonprofit organizations, Husqvarna as an intern, and then working at Lifetime Brands, which we all know is the kitchenware company that James also has worked for. And we're back. And Dan, tell us a little bit. Continue your story. We're excited.
Tell us a little of the rest of your life.
So at this point, no.
Where we left off was with Project H.
Right.
Talking about humanitarian design.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so we kind of finished that up, and now we're at the end of Lifetime Brands.
Mm-hmm. End of the Lifetime.
Yeah. And maybe on to
the next
Martha.
No, and there's a lot in between.
Well, that's a tease.
Yeah, it keeps going.
Did you go back to the bicycle shop?
Is this gonna be a 3-parter?
Yeah. Let's hope so. I want a hat trick. I want to be the first.
Yeah.
So I worked at Lifetime Brands for about 3.5 years, and again, I really thought it was an amazing experience. Learned a lot, and just had a really great time doing it. And it was also one of the first. I will say that what I think is really important for the young community to take into consideration is as you start to build your career, is really start to look for mentors.
Mm.
So as you build your network, you make friends. I talked earlier about how I made friends as interns and how we're still friends today. I mean, you guys were both freelancers for me, and we hang out. I swear we hang out. We're friends, right?
Yeah, we're friends.
One of the things I started to do at Lifetime was also starting to build those relationships. And it's funny because Jason Poor, who is now the director of ID at Peloton, he was my first senior designer. The first senior designer I ever worked under. That was like a true, as a boss relationship. Before that, it was just an internship capacities. And this is where I started to also really start to gather the influence. Because before at an internship, you're it's 3 months, 6 months. I was probably at each one for 6 months or so.
Right.
But this is now I'm working under the same person for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
So you really start to gather that knowledge and start to be directed in these different directions of just aesthetic and style and process. And Jason was probably one of the first mentors I really had. And I think it's something that I'll probably keep talking about over the course of my story. But anyway, left there. And I was really it was great, but I was kind of looking for something different. The housewares industry was awesome, but I just wanted something fresh. And I was kind of interested in getting back. It's also out in Long Island, which we haven't mentioned. It's not, you've talked about, I guess.
Long Island Railroad.
It's not a great commute. It's a really cool office when you get there, but it's not a great commute.
Towards the end of my tenure at Lifetime, I was pushing it so close to, because it's there's only a train every half an hour, and you just push it to the last minute to get on that train.
Did you ever do the carpools?
I did do the carpool, but then I moved, so I was out of the carpool radius.
Right. So we do the carpools, and which is like a good or a bad thing. And like you'd have like really great conversations or like really bad conversations.
Yeah.
It just
depends on the day.
Depends on the day. And there's like always that one person who's like pretending to sleep. It's horrible.
Oh.
They know who they are if they're listening. But so I left Lifetime, and I started working for a small design consultancy in New York called Foresight. So Foresight was a firm that was actually, if I have this right, Foresight was actually born out of Teague. So Teague is originally from New York City. Walter Teague, that's where, New York is obviously one of the original hubs of industrial design.
Right. When
you go all the way back, and Teague was originally started here before it moved out west to Seattle. And I believe when they closed the New York office, the head of it basically said, I'm going to take your clients and I'm going to pay you a fee for X amount of time, and I'm going to use that as leverage to build my own firm. And that's how Foresight was born, which is kind of
cool. They had the foresight to do that.
Yeah, there it is.
No. Gonna make me edit that out, James?
Yeah. So I believe that's right. And if it's not, I apologize for telling that story wrong. But we'll go with that as being the legend. So Foresight was this really
write it down, kids.
It was this really cool firm. It was small. It was about 10 people, and it was everything from physical product to CPG. Again, we did a lot of work with Pepsi. We worked with brands like LG, but then we worked with like brands like Purdue and Kraft, and just a lot of cool stuff. And it was a really great experience. And this is where, so like every step of my story, I think of like, what did I learn? Right. And now I'm at Foresight, and what I learn is like a different level of sketching and details, because I remember it was a really competitive place.
Really?
Like it was super competitive.
Like internally competitive?
Like internally competitive.
So like you had coworkers that you were competing against?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing?
I didn't stay at Foresight long.
Okay.
So it was like cutthroat competitive.
That's interesting.
It wasn't, I don't want to say cutthroat, but it was a tough crowd. And I actually was working there with a friend of mine that from college, he got me the job there. He started his own company in New York and since moved to Nashville. And I can't remember the name of the company that he works for, but he does like huge event design now.
Right.
Experience design for like Nissan, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But he was one of the most talented guys in college. To this day, one of the most talented people I've ever known. This guy named David Shore.
Yeah.
And he got me in there. But like the level of talent there was crazy.
Yeah.
So I was just it was like intimidating.
Yeah.
And next it was also really competitive because you had all these really intense designers like fighting for the best design.
Yeah.
Because some firms work in pockets. In Smart Design, for example, and I'll get into that later, it's a much larger organization. We have projects and project teams, but when you're at a firm that's like 5-10 people, you tend to all kind of work on the same thing together.
Yeah.
So now you're getting a lot of people looking over everyone's shoulders, and it just becomes depending on how it's run, and every company's different, but it was a competitive environment, and for good as well though. And that's where I kind of learned like details in my sketches. Like I remember I would put up a sketch and it'd be like an object of some sort, and they'd be like, cool, what's that curve? Or like, what's that corner? And you're like, oh, it's just like, just a corner. Like,
right, yeah.
They're like, right, but you drew it. So why? So tell me about that corner.
Oh, I feel like I draw a corner all the time. I'm like, I don't know.
I draw on receipts, so I don't know.
I'm like, right, just like, I don't know. It's like it's a little radius. And they're like, oh, it's a radius. Oh. So tell me how this radii wraps around the front of that object.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, oh my God. And it was that level of scrutiny, which is really intimidating.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, like super challenging, and like you go, wow, I gotta step up my game.
Or were they just being jerks?
No comment. But it was a really cool experience, and I did it for a little while, and then it's always easier to get a job when you have a job.
Right.
And that is definitely true.
Yeah.
And somehow I forgot how I got in touch with, or they got in touch with me at Prime Studio.
Oh, yeah.
So after a short run at Foresight, again, there was a lot going on in my life at the time, and it wasn't a good fit. And I was happy to work there and had a great time, but I was ready for something different. And I met Prime Studio, and the guy who runs it there is a guy named Stewart Harvey Lee, and he brought me in, and complete night and day difference.
Yeah.
This is a smaller design studio, correct?
Yeah. So
smaller design studio, New York based, of course.
Yeah. So Prime's even smaller. Prime at the time was like 4 of us, 4 or 5 of us.
That's like, yeah.
Yeah. And Foresight was like 10, 15 maybe.
Okay.
I don't really remember, but like Prime was like 5 people. And at the time, it's much larger now. It's larger now. And, just totally different, really relaxed, really positive. Stewart is another person I immediately put into the mentor category. So Stewart was actually a former Smart Design employee, worked there for about, I want to say 10 years or so, and then broke off on his own to start Prime Studio. Prime turned 20 last year, I believe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And which is really remarkable, which is really cool. And it was just an amazing, positive experience. We worked on a bunch of different things. Again, it was like physical product, it was packaging. It was a bunch of different stuff.
Was there any like projects that stood out for you for Prime?
So you know what's funny? Prime. I joined Prime during an interesting time because it was very transitional. So I'm bad with years, so I don't really quite remember what year this is, but this is basically right before the startup boom hits New York. So the work that we were doing, working at a consultancy is very competitive externally. You're always bidding on projects. You're fighting other firms for projects. Yeah. We would do a lot of times spec projects because we're a small firm. We would get hit up by like a really large company. And in these huge organizations, they'd say, we have an idea for a product.
Right.
And we want you to just do it really quickly for a small amount of money. Just sprint and just make this thing real or whatever, look real. And then we're going to try to sell it internally and turn it into a really big project. Right. And then it's going to be a huge thing. Right. So we were working on projects that were full all the way through. We were working on I remember when I first joined, we were working on this huge initiative for Swissgear, doing all like luggage, travel, like small things like that.
That's cool.
But then we were also working on like all these like quick sprint projects for like Unilever and big companies like that. It's funny. So one of those projects was actually, I didn't get to work on, it was before my time, was the Axe detailer.
Oh yeah.
The what? Axe detailer?
Yeah, that was like Prime's first like claim to fame, and it's like a really cool you'll see it, you'll know what it is.
Yeah, I remember this.
Is this
just like
Axe?
really badass?
This is Axe, like the
Axe
body wash, like deodorant.
So these are like what year was this thing?
So the Axe,
like 2008 or something.
We're looking at it right now. The Axe detailer.
2008.
Yeah, there you go.
Is essentially a loofah, but it's just axed out, I guess. If you're not familiar with the Axe brand, it's very
So these
aggressive.
These are awesome. These are, I know.
Oh dear.
And I know the person who drew those, but like, it's 2008. This is badass work in 2008.
Yeah.
And this is one of these projects where I think was like started off as like someone's crazy idea, and they're like, what if Axe made a loofah?
Right.
And then Prime crushed it with this awesome design.
It looks like a motorcycle tire or something.
Yeah. And
tractor tire.
And again, this is now 11 years old, so
right,
it's the world's a little different. But I think they made like, when I was there, they had made like 10 million of these things, or something crazy.
Yeah.
Something absurd.
Yeah.
So we were doing all types of cool stuff.
I mean, not gonna lie, like 16-year-old me might have bought this. Like,
right, you're no longer the demographic.
I'm no longer a demographic.
Are you saying
but
you're above this now?
I'm in between.
You're still a loofah boy.
I definitely have a loofah, but I don't know. It kind of has a little. It's got some character to it.
It's cool, and we worked on all we worked on all different types of stuff there, and it was just a really great experience. But while it was funny though, and I go back to this because it was a weird transition. I think it was a transitional time for Prime because they were trying to figure out where they kind of fit in the design industry.
Yeah,
where they weren't big, they weren't like a huge, a Frog,
right,
or a Smart for that matter.
This is almost boutique studio, like 4 or 5 people.
Totally. And they also weren't packaging, and like Foresight did a ton of packaging design, and that wasn't Prime's thing. They weren't. I mean, they like doing physical product, like like traditional ID, and it was actually. After I left, about a year and a half after I left, that they got the Harry's project.
Oh yeah.
I think the Harry's razor project was kind of the claim to fame for Prime right now.
Yeah, and Harry's, I believe, and Stewart, if he hears this, he'll text me and be like, "You were so wrong about all this," but I think I'm right. Harry's was like a really I wish I had worked on this. It was a year and a half after I left, I think. But I mean, this is right around the time of like where startups are really hitting critical mass. Yeah. Because like Harry's was started by one of the founders of Warby Parker.
Right. Yeah.
So it was like an offshoot of Warby, and like all of a sudden people are like, oh, we can do this, it's this one brand, let's make another brand.
Right. Yeah. This is that whole like D2C boom that we're kind of in now, right now. And
I truly believe that this project was a huge pivot for Prime, because now they're doing some of the coolest startup work out there.
Yeah.
They're just cranking on it.
Yeah. They did the Gobi toothbrush and this Welly brand, which I saw in Target the other day.
It just launched. It's awesome.
Squish. You worked on Squish.
Squish I worked on. Yeah, that was a good project. Yeah.
For those of you listening, Squish.
Was this the first like collapsible stuff?
No. So this is a cool project because
these are silicone I guess colanders / kitchen equipment.
Yeah, so
collapsible kitchen equipment.
It's collapsible kitchen equipment.
Mixing bowls,
measuring spoons, colanders, things like that.
Right.
And Squish was an interesting project because this was like a patent aversion project.
Right.
We'll call it.
Oh yeah.
So I believe Tupperware, Rubbermaid, one of them, they had the patent for collapsible silicone. So it was a really cool project because this the parent company, Robinson Home, they asked us to do this. They had this idea. They want to build this new line, and they wanted it. The innovation was really in the CMF. So it was the first brand to actually mix colors that way and also mix finishes that way. So the polish on the rim and the polish on the plastic parts marrying next to the matte finish of the silicone was like actually really kind of like
interesting,
really revolutionary at the time.
So there was already existing silicone collapsible container kitchen equipment, but their take on it was, oh hey, it all looks ugly. Let's actually take the time to do some nice CMF, some color material finish on it.
And no one had turned into its own brand,
right?
I think. So it was like one of the first times, like, we're going to make a collection of products built on this principle of collapsibility and color and fun. So it was really cool. But the first thing we had to do was get around the patent.
Right.
So you start to understand, like, you're working with engineers, you're working with their lawyers, trying to figure out what are the folds of a piece of silicone. Because it's, this is where you get like annoyed with patents. You're like, you can't own that.
Yeah.
You're like, come on, that's anyone's right to do that.
We had this conversation on the podcast, and I would be curious to hear what you think about the whole patent thing, because I mean we certainly talked it out, and I don't know. I sort of have mixed feelings about it, but like, what are your thoughts?
Look, I mean, you have to protect.
Right.
Do you?
Yeah, you do. You need to protect yourself, because you never know, because otherwise the little guy can get beat out by the big guy. You don't always win just because you're first. Sometimes you're first and doesn't mean you're the biggest or the best. And you've had, like, this is a really terrible example, so I regret it ahead of time, but I'm pretty sure like the Snuggie is like one of these stories where like someone had thought of it before.
Right.
It didn't have the capital. Like, they had launched it and it failed, but then here comes a conglomerate and they're like, you can't patent a blanket with holes with arms in it. Right. And they launched like the brand and they have the infomercial and they're able to turn into this thing. And so patents, I think, are important to give people some level of protection, a head start, just like some guidelines to own what's yours.
Yeah.
They are. I get that it's like a gray topic and it's not that black and white.
But do you recall? I mean, I recall when at Lifetime Brands having to use like inferior mechanisms for certain things because we couldn't use like the patent, and then it's just like,
why make this product?
That's one of those. Like, one of those awful feelings of like we're like, this is 2 steps back.
That was also like a Lifetime thing. I hate to say it.
But it was frustrating because like it just feels like if we are talking about just innovation and the course of innovation, we should just be building on top of each other and not like moving around. I don't know. It's
No,
it's
I know.
a really difficult topic.
It is a difficult topic because there's also design patents versus functional patents. So it's a whole level of things.
Right.
But we were able to do it successfully here and not make any true compromises, which is important. And I think you're right. When the actual function or whatever it is, the quality of a product suffers because of it, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Which is easier said than done from our seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the business side of things is like a different story.
We're like, just don't do it. They're like, oh, is that the answer?
All right, you don't.
Okay, you're fired.
We won't. Just don't.
Right, we're not going to pay you.
Yeah, no salary then.
Yeah, exactly. So Squish was an awesome project I got to work on. I got to do a bunch of cool things, and I was there for a little while. And after working there, things had slowed down there, and I kind of switched over to freelance, and I was just kind of taking on a bunch of different roles. And so it was at that point that I remember one day a friend of mine called me up, a guy I used to work with, who's now named Will Steinkraus, and he's the head of ID at Nerf Dog out in New Jersey.
Oh,
yeah, so he oversees all the
pet stuff.
Yeah, all the pet stuff. And he was at Martha Stewart. He was a senior designer at Martha Stewart. And he was the only industrial designer.
Martha Stewart, the cooking lady?
The cooking lady,
okay.
Yeah.
Some of our listeners don't know Martha Stewart. Is she still around?
I think everyone knows because, we
got some Gen Zers.
She's been cooking with Snoop Dogg.
Exactly.
She's been seen cooking with Snoop Dogg recently.
Yeah, she has a TV show with Snoop Dogg. Martha her true genius is staying relevant. Mm-hmm. That is like her true. She knows how to be a topic.
I mean, she didn't go to prison, right? She was just under house arrest?
No, she went to jail.
Oh, okay. So she's got street cred.
I don't know the full story.
Was that to also remain relevant? Getting
put
into prison.
You worked for Martha Stewart, so wait.
I worked for Martha Stewart.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about her jail record, or the design work. Martha, here's what I'll say. Here's what I'm going to defend Martha. Martha she's a tough cookie, and she's really strong in her convictions, and she really believes in what she believes in. And in that case, that was a situation where, to my understanding, she didn't believe she did anything wrong,
right,
and therefore suffered a consequence.
Right.
But she's like, over my dead body, am I apologizing for something I think I didn't do wrong?
Yeah, yeah.
And props. It's like, damn, that's
fair enough.
That's freaking street cred.
Yeah.
She's like, go on, send me to jail. I'm not saying sorry. Dude, a lot of people would crumble. Martha's like, bring it.
Yeah.
She's a billionaire at this point.
Yeah.
It's like,
did you get a chance to design her ankle bracelet?
No, this is before my time.
Okay, anyway.
So listen, so I work for Martha. Anyway, so what happens is a friend calls me up and he's like, do you want this job? And I'm like, absolutely not. No way in hell. I'm not doing it. You know what it is? I didn't understand. I had no connection to her. I had no connection to the brand.
Right.
I was very much a traditional industrial designer. I liked tech and, freaking sneakers and cars. And I was like, and I'd already worked in housewares. And I'm like, I don't want to do housewares again.
Yeah.
And luckily, I had a lot of people in my corner at the time convincing me it was a really good idea. And they were like, listen, this is a good idea. Take this job. Just try it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And it is by far the best decision I'd ever made in my career.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
So people in your corner, are you talking about like the mentors, like the people that?
Yeah, the mentors, and also just like people like, friends and families, and like people who had a connection to the brand.
Right.
I also think it's worth saying, like, obviously Martha Stewart probably isn't on many designers' dream job list, right? But just hearing you say that, hey, it was the most impactful thing in your career is really valuable, right? Like, because
100%.
We don't know what the most impactful thing is going to be unless you try it out.
100%. Like, do not turn down opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you never know where it's coming from.
Right.
And, look, if it doesn't feel right, if it feels wrong, don't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But if there's a chance it could be good, try it out.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Just try it. Like, try it. And if you don't like it, do something else.
If you don't like it, don't stay there for 30 years.
Right. Right, because it's a different world, It's like, it's not the same thing as our parents and grandparents, where it's like, and you retire and they give you a watch.
I think we just
have you seen the Domino's Rolex?
No.
I think I saw that. Actually, I saw that.
I think every year. You know how I heard about this? Danny Brown.
I thought this was a podcast. Was there a podcast about this?
I
heard about it too. So.
Danny Brown, the the rapper,
he's a rapper?
Yes. He collects these watches. So
From Domino's?
Domino's, I think every year or something, to their top salesperson or their top, I forget, but they give them a custom Rolex Domino's
And it has like a Domino's
watch.
logo in it.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah. And I feel like they go on StockX for
Boom.
like really
I feel
expensive.
Honestly, I feel like Domino's deserves a lot of credit. They really do try. Like, come on, that's ridiculous.
That's incredible.
But
anyway,
Dan,
Martha Stewart.
Yes. So Martha Stewart obviously
Yeah.
had a kitchen show, and you designed kitchen products for her.
Right.
Or how did that evolve?
Right. So, I went into Martha as a senior designer. I became a senior designer at Prime. That was like, and title's another thing. We can get into that, but I kind of went in there as an army of one. And Martha was broken up into two sides of a business. It was media and product, media and merchandising. And media was multiple magazines, a television show, cookbooks, web series, etc. She was a media conglomerate. So it was Martha Stewart Living Omni Media at the time. And the company was huge, and it was like probably 400 people when I first started. And she had a TV show and, basic cable or whatever it was. And it was just like this huge thing. It was like a machine.
Yeah.
And what was cool was that you start to see and that's why when I interviewed there, I'm like, all right, this is too cool. Like the office was amazing. There were test kitchens, there was TV studios, there was film studios, there was photo studios, there's all these things. And you just saw like this energy of creativity of things that I'd never witnessed before, things I didn't care about. So I'm like, this is that itch again where I'm like, I don't like perfume. I'm like, but this is cool. I want to do it.
Yeah, it's different. You're learning something new.
I had the exact same itch, and I'm like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
So I came in there, and what Martha had on the merchandising side was of different pillars of businesses, different verticals rather, and it was like PetSmart business. You had craft and a Michaels business, Home Depot. You have kitchen, bath, whatever, decorative accessories, things like that, textiles, and then you have kitchen.
Yeah.
And when I started off there, it was just me, and we had a partnership with Macy's. And I oversaw the kitchen department. So if you go to Macy's Cellar right now, she's still one of the most their premier brands. It's an entire collection of just huge swath of products. So all of a sudden, I'm being told you are now in charge of a seasonal product line,
Right.
Which is a whole thing.
Wait. So this is kind of your first transition into like owning a more of a bigger piece of the pie here.
100%.
Okay.
So that was a big thing for me.
Oh, yeah.
Because I enjoy looking at things in a bigger picture.
Okay.
I think it's one of the reasons I've been able to succeed in that type of capacity and in those types of positions, because getting to work on stories and collections and multiple products and larger opportunities is something that I really, really love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Martha, like a lot of housewares, it's a seasonal program. So when you work for these housewares companies or these retailers rather, it's a fashion-driven brand or a fashion-driven industry. So it's what are the new colors and what are the new collections, and every year it's something new and different. So you're always working a year out. So you're constantly, so it's this year I'm working on Christmas next year.
Yeah.
And then on Christmas, you're working on holiday collections. And there's like every year Christmas is showing up and Halloween's showing up.
Right.
And again, are these things that I necessarily excite like my like traditional industrial, Dieter Ram side of me? I'm like, no, but I'm like, but this is cool and it's different and I'm learning.
Right.
So I took on that role, and very quickly, at first it was kind of like a really easy job. Like I wasn't really doing that much. And it was kind of silly. And like overnight, management changed, some new partnership changed, the company was shifting, and everything changed. And all of a sudden I started to get elevated in the company. And I was promoted. I built a team. I built an entire department. And what ended up just being kitchen ended up being tabletop. What ended up being kitchen and tabletop ended up being most of the ID work that was happening across different categories. So we were working in pet. We were assisting in some Home Depot things. We were doing a lot of the point of purchase, all the retail fixtures, things like that. So it really just started to expand. And what I tried to build was the in-house ID team, which was really different for them because everyone was like, you work on this and you work on that. And I was like, no, we're a skill. We're like a firm. we're like a little consultancy. What do you need from us?
Right.
And
That's
then,
interesting.
Yeah, so we were able to kind of build out this different way of thinking, and you're pulling up some of like the point of purchase retail, settings and things like that. So it was just fun and really, really different.
I mean, this is your first transition into more this manager role, which I know you've kind of transitioned into this role. I mean, how does that feel? Did you miss any of the traditional kind of nitty-gritty ID?
Right.
I mean, that's the big question, at least on my side, and I'm sure that there might be other people out there kind of thinking about this topic of like,
right.
There's a couple paths you can take in your career, right? As a designer,
right?
You can work your way up the ladder and become more of a manager and do less nitty-gritty industrial design, or you can kind of stay as a specialist, or you can kind of do your own thing. It's
right. Well, it's funny because when you had like Scott Henderson on here, he told that story, which I hear. I'm like, yep, I get that. Where he rose to the ranks in smart design, and he's like, I'm not designing anymore.
Yeah.
I want to design, and he built his own company, his own personal brand of design. Now he gets to do all this great work as an independent.
Yeah.
Right, and he has like a small team or whatever it is, but he really wanted to be hands on. For me, I actually love being a director. It was something that I actually didn't know anything about, and as soon as it just made a lot of sense for me. I mean, I guess I've always been this way, sort of.
I mean, if you listen to the last episode, you can talk. You kind of talk about a little bit of the systems thinking that you enjoyed in school, and I feel like that systems like service design, interactions, like all of that more kind of holistic design side definitely lends itself a lot more to that director side of design, I think.
Totally. And you know what it is? I'm also very right brain, left brain. Like I mean, again, I was told to stop, to get out of the bike shop and get on the sales floor.
Yeah.
Right. They're like, seriously, you got to go. and it's because I actually love the business side of design also. Right. I really do. And I love telling the story and selling people on good design, because one of the things you learn really on in your career is that a lot of good design fails. And it's for really stupid reasons. Things aren't packaged right. They're not merchandised right. Like, seriously, it's not even on the shelf correctly, and people don't see it, and the product fails, and it was really, really good. I remember there was this really cool salt and pepper grinder. I'll never forget it, at Lifetime Brands, that Danny Lenz, the guy who started Aquapaw. And for anyone who has a dog out there, get an Aquapaw. It is a life-changing product. It's really, really great.
Is this a thing that sticks on your bathtub?
Yeah. Yeah, it sticks in your bathtub, and honestly, he spent a long time building this thing, but
we need to explain this because it's so foreign to people that don't know.
It's basically as seen on Shark Tank. There you go. It is a device. It's like a silicone device that attaches with a hose to your tub or any faucet, and it basically has water coming directly out of your hand. But what it does is it also has a bristle. So you're basically petting your animal, your dog, or, as you're cleaning them. So it's much more comforting. It's controlled.
Right.
And he has a patent mechanism, which basically, as you close your fist, it turns it on or turns it off. So it's really cool.
That's really cool.
Why are we talking about this? I forgot.
Tangent.
No, the businesses of design.
Yeah.
For me, it's just what I just gravitated towards and really loved, and I just excel at it. And it was something that I just felt more comfortable being in that role and being able to oversee it. And what I've learned is that, and a lot of people ask me, it's funny because it's controversial, I think, when people are like, "Are you really a designer?"
People ask you that?
100%.
I would just walk away.
because they're like, well, because you go. There's this idea which designers have, which is that if I didn't draw every line, it's not mine.
I have that problem. That's the problem I'm in right now. It's like I'm on that transition phase of like, where do I go from here? Like,
right.
How do you expand?
You have to give up.
Yeah.
You have to give up control sometimes.
Yeah.
And what I say a lot to my team and in general, and this is something that I'm going to try to be talking to with more students, is that I think there is the sport of design. I think design is a sport. All right. Here's my analogy, is that it's very simple. It's very similar, where it's a team. that make something great. And reality is a lot of people touch a product before it goes forward.
For sure.
You know, so it's not just the designer, it's the person, it's the marketing manager, the merchandising manager, engineer, it's the director, it's the factory, it's all these people, and everyone has claim to it at the end of it. And it's that team that makes it really great. You know, and like a sport, you keep track of who's winning and who's losing and who's great and who's like the best and who's the MVP, and it's a competition and there's awards and all these things. And if you look at it like that, I think it's a lot easier, because you go, it really, you know, we know great players, but we celebrate them and being a part of really great teams.
Yeah.
And what I love to be is the leader of that team.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. I've been working on it. No. But it's true. And I think for me right now, especially even the role I'm in now, I don't get to see every single product that leaves our team through as much as I wish. This is not enough time in the day.
Yeah.
But on the things that I really try to put my input on. I'm still there sketching every day.
Right. I'm
still there brainstorming. I'm not in CAD as much as I wish I could be. I'm not there doing all the renderings as much as I could, because my role's somewhere else.
Right.
But I feel ownership over that design just as much as you do, because I'm making sure it gets made. I'm making sure it's great. I represent the interest of both the designer as well as the client. I'm that middle person who's trying to make something actually happen.
Right.
And for me, being in a director role, and I think a lot of people who have been directors or other people in that role would agree with, is it's just as fulfilling and it's just as exciting. It's just in a very different way.
Yeah.
So Martha was that kind of first opportunity that really enabled that for me to really kind of come into my own, to be able to, again, take a step back from just designing a single object and be like, well, how does this one object fit into a collection?
Yeah.
And how does this one collection fit into an entire brand story over the course of a year? And how does this bigger thing fall into the entire massive part of this 10-year, 20-year legacy of what Martha Stewart is, or something like that. So it's kind of cool.
Wow. I mean, one other tangent that I would like to take us off on, because you talked about it a little bit. I've certainly noticed throughout my career that there are different types of designers. Like when somebody says like, I want to hire an industrial designer, like when I think of that, I think of all the industrial designers I know and how they are different people with different skill sets, with different ability.
Pull something up as you're saying this. Keep talking.
But what I'm curious about is, like, in building a team, like, how do you build the right team? Like, I don't know, like, if you have the answer to this, or if you have some inkling as to like what it takes to build that good team.
So it's a really great question. It's a super hard question. It's very loaded. And what I'm looking at my phone for is because I'm pulling up. I have a terrible memory, unfortunately, when it comes to names.
Yeah.
But I'm a big reader. And I definitely encourage everyone out there to read.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to design books and business books. I'm like obsessed.
You got any go-tos?
Well, the one I'm going to reference right now, it's called The 10 Faces of Innovation.
Oh, right.
Interesting. Okay.
So IDEO, read every IDEO book, first of all, because what they are is they're history books. And they go all the way back to, I forgot what the first one was called, The Art of Design. The Art of Innovation, I think, was the very first one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Art of Innovation, Change by Design. I mean, there's a bunch of them, right? But those are really great history books because they tell case studies.
Yeah.
And they tell really intricate stories about how a product or an idea or an innovation succeeded or failed or something like that. Actually, a really good tangent of that was I was reading one of these books, and I was reading about a case study that Procter & Gamble did with IDEO, how they tried to get Old Spice into the hands of young people. And what they did was they created these boxes for students that were going into health class in middle school. So you're hitting puberty, and you don't know what deodorant is.
Right.
And the school gives you a box. Here's your boy box, and there's boy stuff in there, and there's Old Spice. I was a part of that study, and I still use Old Spice today.
Oh.
Yes. So
testament to the study, I guess.
Yeah, which is like a little bit maybe too much information, but I'm just saying. But it's true. It's a really interesting. But
I thought Old Spice claim to fame was that one guy that rides a horse or whatever. What's his name? Terry Crews, is that the same guy?
Terry Crews. I mean,
he's just indefinitely riding a horse.
Yes.
I saw him at ICFF riding a horse.
I don't think it's Terry Crews. Is it Terry Crews?
Yeah, I think he has a degree in architecture.
Yeah, he has a furniture collection.
Yeah.
I'm so glad it was Terry Crews.
Yeah.
He's a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
But building a great team, right? So that, not that book has all the answers, but it's very fascinating, and it made me think about it. But team is everything. Team dynamic is everything. And like, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's balance. And you just need to find people that are good at different things and that complement each other really well. Because that friction that I talked about earlier at past jobs, that's poison. That is freaking venom. And when you have people that butt heads, that don't get along, that aren't willing to listen to each other, that's when things fail.
Right.
And to build a great team is to really understand what you need to succeed, what's the output that you have to get out there, and who can get you there. And also who you can rely on, because for me, a lot of these jobs, a lot of work I've done, you're working late,
right?
You're pulling in crazy hours, and I need to know that you're going to be there with me,
right?
And I need to know that you want to stay late to get this done, because it's not good enough.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's like, because honestly, that's a tough thing, because I want to make sure that you're as passionate about this as I am.
Right.
That you have the same expectations, the same taste level, the same like requirements for success. Because when I leave and you're still there at your desk, I'm like, well, then I'm staying. I'm not leaving. And I'm like, yes, it's awesome. Or like, I'm like trying to get you out of your seat. Like, we got to go home. It's done. Like, we can't do any more filleting tonight. No more renders. Just hit go.
No more SolidWorks.
No more SolidWorks.
Turn it off.
So to me, and what I feel like I've been able to be successful with team building and things like that, it's just really understanding people. It's being empathetic and just really listening also, to what people need and what people want.
Right. That's crazy. I mean, just the idea of that empathy, because it's like, to think about you and your role currently with Smart, it's like you're being I think I heard Datulo talking about this recently in a podcast about being empathetic to the client, but it's like, as in your position, I can imagine you being empathetic to the client, empathetic to the user, empathetic to your team, and like
empathetic to the company, to your company, to what they need. No, it's infinite empathy. Empathize with everybody.
The key to design, infinite empathy.
No, but it is in a weird way. But you know what? It's a
little embroidered patch. Infinite empathy.
Yeah, I'm empathetic. I'm a designer. You know what it is? I feel as though, you'd hear like the customer is always right.
Right.
And then you hear like, no, the employee is also always right. You hear like that kind of like that fight where it's always like, be good to your employees.
Yeah.
Be great to your customers, but also be good to your employees.
Yeah.
And I think that is 100% the most true thing ever, because those are the ones who are, those are your people. Those are your soldiers.
Right.
Those are the ones who are going to get it done. Those are the ones who are going to get you to that level of success and make something great. And also like, I'm trying to learn too. So when I hire somebody, I only want to hire people that are better than me.
Yeah.
Like, I want to hire people that are like really good so that I can learn from them.
I feel like that's what Steve Jobs said. Didn't Steve Jobs say a quote like that?
Maybe.
That's a good book too. You should read. But yeah, no, I mean, it's about that type of environment that you want to build, where you want people to be excited to work with you, to work for you, where not every project is great.
Yeah.
Some projects really aren't that much fun.
Right.
But they're important.
Right.
Right? This project is important to this client. This project may be important to our business. We got to do it. We have to do a good job.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure you have the right people doing it is everything. And a lot of it comes from empathy and really just making sure that you treat people how they need to be treated. And like, just think about every bad experience you ever had, every bad boss, every time you were given bad direction where a client's like, I don't like it. I don't know why. I can't tell you why I don't like it, but fix it.
Right.
Yeah. And you're like, great. Cool. I'm gonna go. You're being billed hourly, right? And they're like, "This is so expensive." It's like, right? You couldn't make a decision. So, really listening to yourself about how you would want to be managed, I think, is also a big part of being a manager. I'm kind of all over the place with this, but
I mean, I think to kind of wrap up the Martha Stewart thing, it seems like you definitely grew a ton just in terms of understanding how to grow a team and just managing a team at Martha Stewart. And then I guess I'm curious, like, where did you take that? How did you go to the next step? And kind of how does that lead you to where you are now?
Well, all right, so it still actually is because of Martha, because the other thing that I learned there, which really also changed me as a creative and as a designer, was inspiration. What inspired me completely changed.
Interesting.
So before, again, going into that job, I was very much a traditional ID.
Right. You're on Les Manouche every day.
That didn't exist back then, but yes. Course 77. And I'm just like on there and it's like, I'm reading every ID magazine and all these things and whatnot. And Scott mentioned that. I remember I heard that one. ID magazine used to be the thing.
Yeah.
Which was really, it's rest in peace. But one of the things that I really learned at Martha was a different appreciation of things, and that kind of started with color, pattern, texture, and history. So when you start a project, right, what do? You go to Pinterest, you go online, you look at Les Manouche, you look at what's out there, what's new, what's exciting, you go sample shopping. They tell you to design a new microphone. You're going to look at all the new microphones, all the new technology. You're going to look at all the things that are peripheral and analogous.
Right.
And you're going to say, I'm going to pull inspiration from all these things. And then you're going to go and look, maybe at a vintage microphone. That's like step one at Martha, where we wouldn't look at the current day. We weren't looking towards the future. We were always looking in the past, and in a good way, for inspiration. And we had this thing called the Prop House there, and it was because we had a film studio and a media studio and all these things. We literally had like a Parisian flea market in our office, like huge, like 1,000 square foot room of like every documented like cup, saucer, piece of like a globe from the turn of the century, like all these incredible things. Wow. And you would just go in there and get lost. It was a library of beautiful objects.
Yeah.
And your job working there was to find more beautiful objects.
Interesting.
So instead, when we travel, because we would travel a lot there, we'd go to flea markets. We'd go to a trade show in a different country, and the first thing we do when we get there is hit up a flea market, go to an antique shop.
Yeah.
And you're
That's a lot of fun.
You become like a treasure hunter.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're digging through this box and you find this object, which is maybe a kitchen tool from like turn of the century that no one even knows.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to bring this back.
Because it's completely foreign, right?
Completely foreign. Or it's like I'm working on this detail and I'm working on this story for this new collection. I need a detail. Instead of looking at, again, the internet, I'm literally looking at the past. And that was a huge thing which I never did before. Yeah. And if I think about how that influenced me, if I was to design my own home before Martha and after, before it was like Muji, white, minimal. Yeah, this guy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, now you're talking. And when I left, it was like color, pattern, texture.
Yeah.
Like,
interesting.
I have so many bowls in my house. Just bowls. Just like ceramic bowls and like things that I've bought. I have like so many kitchen towels and like textiles and table runners and all these things, pillows, things I never cared about growing into it. And now I'm just like, it just completely changed me. And all of a sudden I just immersed myself in these different forms of inspiration. And that was a huge thing.
Yeah.
So getting to think differently about design was a huge part of that job as well.
Man, color is one of those things that is so frightening, because anytime you get into a meeting with somebody who's like,
it's polarizing.
It's subjective.
I mean, I just remember designing kitchen tools and gadgets, and it was like, it's either black or red because these are the colors that sell. And if you do anything different than that, then it's like, it's game over.
Did I tell a story about when I designed a litter box and the buyer wanted to make it brown so that the cat crap would blend in.
Oh,
I was so frustrated. I really did. First of all, I didn't want my litter box to be brown.
No, it's
no
a terrible
one wants a brown litter box. And then the basis of which it was a disaster.
And
color is the whole thing.
Color is the whole thing, and it's funny because you talk about kitchen. It's like KitchenAid is like this. They're so progressive when it comes to their mixers as for colors.
Right.
They're so on the nose about trends. They're ahead of the curve, and every year they're releasing trend colors and these really beautiful fashion. And they have like ones that stay and ones that come and go.
Yeah.
But to your point, every year, black, white, and red.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that sell the most.
Yeah.
So, but they bring out new colors every year because it gives them credibility.
Right.
It brings excitement. It's marketing, and it drives sales.
Right.
So there's a logic behind it as well. And color is a completely fascinating thing. There's another really good book, Ingrid Fattel. I apologize if I got her name wrong. She used to be at high up at IDEO. She wrote a book called Joy or Joyful. It's on the list. I can give you the book list I have after
Put in
this.
a link or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have
yeah.
to put Dan's book list.
It's a really good book. Yeah, it's a really good book on color and just how we actually interact with it on a very emotional level. It's really cool. So yeah, Martha Stewart left there, and from there wanted to do something completely different, and was looking for a change. I had been at a big company, so I've worked for a big company. It's a public company. I've worked for a small consultancy. I've worked for a medium consultancy. I've worked for a big, kitchen conglomerate. I worked for a power tools company. I am like so freaking sick of everything. I'm like, I want to do something totally
You've done
different.
everything.
No, but I've done a bunch. But I'm a dog person. I am a dog person.
Do you have a dog?
I do. I am a dog person.
I know you have a dog.
You know a dog.
You have a dog.
We
person.
both know. Yeah, we all know it. Dan has a dog.
Yeah, I work with foster dogs. I'm like big on dogs,
Yeah.
right? And all of a sudden, this startup pops up, and it's called Bark. BarkBox is this product that everyone knows about. I mean, at least in New York, it's like one of these startups that
Subscription service for dog toys.
Yep, subscription service, and they are looking for a designer. They're looking for a senior designer. So I'm a director at this point. I've been at Martha now for about 5 years. I have an absurd title. My title is this is an important lesson to everyone out there.
Okay.
Titles don't mean anything.
What was your title?
The initials of my title was AVP DDD.
What? What does that mean?
Associate Vice President, Deputy Design Director.
Wow. All right.
Titles only matter where you work, because everywhere a senior here could mean an executive there. You know, who the hell knows?
Yeah.
So AVP DDD, I'm like, come on, don't put that on my business card. And then you get all these deputy jokes. You're like, come on, who's the sheriff? And you're like, here we go. No, it's like not great. It's not great.
Who was the assistant to the deputy design
Yeah,
director?
exactly.
But anyway, so yeah, you located Bark & Co.
So I located Bark & Co. And the funny story there is that, and this is another fun story, is that they were a really young company. They were super, super young, and I LinkedIn stalk them, and I see who they are, and I start looking through the roster of employees, and I'm like, they're looking for a senior designer. I'm too senior for this role based on the description,
Right.
but I really want to work there.
Yeah.
I kind of love the idea of designing toys. I've never designed toys. I really want to work with dogs. I know nothing about, cut and sew plush. Let's do it. Let's try it. How do I get there? I started looking through it, and I realized I don't think they know what they need. I think that someone in HR wrote this, and I'm gonna apply.
Okay.
And I'm gonna tell them in my application, I'm like, I want to work for you, and I think here's why you should hire me and not a senior designer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a bold move right there.
It was a bold
That's
move.
a bold move.
And it worked. And it was like one of the quickest jobs I ever got. They actually wrote me right away, and they brought me in within like a week or so, and it moved really quickly. And yeah, it was kind of like as I predicted, that they were this year only a couple years old as a company. At that point, they had kind of outsourced a lot of their design work. They'd never really built an in-house team. There was a VP of design there at the time, and he was kind of trying to build a team there. And basically, they needed to have someone actually do the work, heavy lifting, and that was me. So I came in there, and a team of one. We brought in a freelancer, and from there built an entire design department up from the ground up, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And you guys were developing lines of dog toys, and this kind of goes back to kind of your holistic viewpoint of like, you really loved building that story.
Right.
Because, I mean, this is where I come into to your life.
Finally, Nick. Back to Nick.
Excuse me,
And
but
James.
I was there first.
Yes,
and
true.
James.
We knew each other
Yeah,
first. Sorry.
James. James introduced us.
Yeah, Dan and I share a mentor in
That's
Jason
true.
Poor.
We never overlapped at Lifetime, unfortunately.
No, we didn't.
But yeah, we worked for the same guy.
Yeah. No, Dan has a record of hiring gingers.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Seth Fowler.
Oh yeah.
Also,
episode 22.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's close.
So
it's probably on
Seth.
there.
So Seth was my. It's like, God, I forgot he was on the show.
Yeah.
Seth was my intern at Martha,
Yeah.
and then he worked at Lifetime, and then I hired him out of there to work for me at Bark.
Okay.
And then Katie Lim, who was on the show,
Yeah.
Oh,
she
yeah.
was my
Episode 55.
Wow, good memory. He's like, I have no idea. You're just like throwing numbers out.
People will figure it out.
She was a senior designer, and now she's a director of ID there, overseeing the Super Chewer line. Super proud of her accomplishments. She's crushed it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've pretty much interviewed the Bark All Stars.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what it is? This is, again, like a good reminder for all the young people out there. It is a tight, small field.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we all really, if you're in the field, we all really do know each other. So
Yeah.
it's important that you're good to each other and that you're loyal and that you help each other out, because you never know when you're going to need that assistance. And especially, again, when you talk about building a team, I mean, I build people. I try to hire people that I know, that I can trust, people I've worked with before. And if I get contacted from a recruiter about a job that I want, or that they want, that's interest in whatever, that they're looking for me to, I go, well, that's not right for me, but I know the person.
Right.
And I've gotten other people hired that used to work for me before, know, going through that right now with another guy who used to work with me. I'm trying to get him to a job that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So you never know, you never really know. But so went to Bark and kind of got into dog toys.
I guess I think maybe, is there any good kind of tips that, you've worked on a lot of consumer products, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then pet products is interesting because the buyer of the product is not the user of the product. Right. So I don't know if there's any insights there. If you learned anything from that experience of doing dog toys. I know from my experience, it is very story heavy at Bark. It's all about building that story of like each subscription box is a theme.
Right.
You're kind of building a little character and like a story to each box that the person. It's a whole experience, right?
Right. And when you worked at PetMate was very much like you're working for brands like Kong.
Right. It's very traditional, more like product based, but Bark's different because it's like, hey, I open a box and it's the kingdom box, and you have a princess with the long hair, Rapunzel, dog toy or whatever.
Totally. I mean, you think about products that you design, and a lot of times you do want to give them a narrative,
right? How
you're using it, when you should use it, all these different things. Bark and dog toys, especially, it's really literal. It's like, no, there's a character and it's a story, and what does that character do, and how do you interact with it? And so that was super fascinating. So, as you said, like, the Bark box is this monthly subscription you get every month, and there's insert cards, and there's paper, and there's games, and it's a whole family experience.
Right.
So now designing a product with collateral was so different, right? So it's not just about the product; it's about the tag. What does the tag say? How do I use this thing? And again, this is for a dog, but it's that intertwined. So even talking about like the emotional connection, so different. People, when we design things, and I think the stuff that you guys design, you're almost trying to design heirlooms, right? Like these beautiful objects that people will cherish and keep and hold on to forever. And I think when you work in kitchen, it's interesting because we've all have that like that ladle or that wood spoon from our grandma that's been passed down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these are like these objects that you cherish. Dog toys are designed to be destroyed.
Right. They're not long term for sure.
Like, that is crazy. Like, just wrapping your head around that, it's like, I'm going to make something which I want to be ruined.
Right.
And what Bark does really well is they lean into that hard. And it's a replenishment model. And it's all about, we're going to tell a really great story that's going to get you really excited. And then you're going to ruin it. Your dog is literally going to destroy it. You're going to clap and applaud and be super pumped. And then you're going to wait for next month for it to happen all over again.
I feel like that was a key strong suit of Bark's branding, is that they lean into the fact that the toy is going to just
Destroyers
get
Club.
It's honestly one of the most genius things they've done.
It's so good. It's crazy because like any normal person would be like, oh, let's make the most indestructible toy. Let's make a toy that the dogs can't destroy, because it seems like a problem when a dog destroys a toy. And in some, you can debate that all day long, but like the fact that like Bark decided to say like, oh yeah, dogs destroy toys, like let's accept that fact and take advantage of that, really made, I think that was a key part of their business, in my opinion.
100%. It's a value proposition, and they changed it. They flipped it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was exciting to be a part of, because that blew my mind.
Right.
And imagine going into an industry which is stale, and it's been done. And first of all, it's bigger than baby, which is wild. It's a huge industry. It's a weird emotional thing, because when you, as a parent, so you're a parent to a child or a parent to an animal, and when you spoil your child, sometimes you feel good, but a lot of times you feel bad. I shouldn't spoil my kid. Shouldn't do that. It's not good. When you spoil your dog, you feel like a king. You're like, I have given you this thing. Oh my God, more treats, more toys. And like, you feel really good about it. And, the other funny thing is that the pet industry is like dog, especially, like it's almost impervious to like economic downturn, because if you think about it, if you have a family and all of a sudden money's tight, you're gonna get hand-me-down clothing, and if you have a baby, you can get a food mill and make your own baby food. There's like creative ways you can like save money.
Yeah.
If you don't give your dog something to chew, it's gonna chew your shoes. Like, I dare you to make dog food. It is a horrible experience. It is like, everyone's like, I'm gonna make my own dog food. I'm like, yeah, you're gonna like cook 12 pounds of turkey and then have this giant thing, and then where are you gonna store it, and they're gonna freeze dry. It's like, it is a nightmare.
There's people at Bark that do make dog food.
That is true.
We
but
know.
there's a few. Yeah. But it's all these things that make for a really interesting experience, and for a brand that's really exciting. And it was great. Again, I came from I came from housewares, I came from beautiful objects, I came from power tools and all these things, and now I'm making squirrels with mustaches on it.
I mean, I really enjoy the trend here of like, Dan, you're always going out and seeking the thing that you almost know least about. You're like, I've never done this before. Like, I want to learn about this. I want to design for this. I want to just try this out. And I love that.
Well, I don't know. That's like the fun part of what we get to do.
Right. It's just that variety,
Yeah. I mean, look, we're taught to be these Renaissance creative thinkers, and in reality, we very often get pigeonholed in our field.
Right.
And it's frustrating.
Yeah.
You want to try everything. You're like, no, just give me the opportunity to design a car. I just never did it before. And it's like, right, because the people who design cars have been designing cars.
Yeah.
And they know, not that I want to design. I mean, I couldn't design a car.
Man,
I could not design. That is way too freaking hard. So I overspoke. I have no business saying that for all the car designers out there. I'm really sorry. No, it's this idea that you can do all these different things is really exciting, but you don't always get the chance to.
Right.
Because you end up working in a field, and housewares is one of them, and this, like, people get stuck doing that. And you apply, so you work in housewares, and you're like, great, I want to work in tech. I want to work for a phone company. And they're like, great, but you've never designed a phone before. And you're like, right, I'd like to start. Give me a chance. And they go, right, but this person has designed a phone before.
That's the whole conundrum.
And that is tough.
Yeah.
So diversity is something that I've really tried to do and push myself across my career, is to make sure that I'm trying all these things so that it's a language.
Right.
And I want to be able to speak as many of them as possible.
Yeah. I feel like there's a couple advantages. I mean, so I knew about the whole, like, the pigeonhole effect of, if I continued to work in houseware, in like kitchen tools and gadgets, that kind of industry. And that's why I started freelancing, was to be able to expose myself to a lot of different things. But I feel like it kind of there were kind of two benefits to that. One of which was, yes, I am exposed to all these different things, and I get to enjoy designing all sorts of, I've designed dog toys now, I've designed tech products, I've designed fitness equipment. But then the other thing that it does is that it actually allows you to appreciate the things that you have designed, because I feel like sometimes you end up in those companies where people have been there for 20, 25, 30 years. They've been there their entire life, and they're totally jaded, and they don't know what to appreciate about what they've done, because maybe they haven't been exposed to other things. I mean, I'm sure that there are people out there that are very like happy pursuing the same type of design all the time.
Totally. And I know those guys. And I mean, those people, like they love it. Like I had friends in college that were like, I want to design shoes.
Yeah. Right.
And they are doing it.
But since I left kitchenwares, now I have a deeper appreciation for kitchenwares because now I've designed fitness equipment, dog toys, and tech products.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, I wish I could just design a spatula tomorrow.
Well, no, it's funny. Our mutual friend Nate, who went to go work for Philips, he was designing consumer appliances, out in Amsterdam. The process was so different. We worked with him at Lifetime. He was like, I miss just making something as simple as a spatula. Yeah. Where it wasn't as complicated and intricate as like an iron.
It is kind of crazy nowadays. It feels like all the quote unquote, I don't want to dive back into the save the world topic, but save the world stuff is so complex. And the spatulas don't get the credit. You know, like
well, there's something still I think it's about that whole spectrum again. It's all a spectrum. And it's like you get to work on really complex problems or you get to work on really small, precious things. Yeah. And that's fun too.
It's the variety again. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, it's funny because like you look at, a good example, not, to like go into like star designers and things like that, but you look at some of them that are out there and the ones that are most well known, the rock stars, the Philippe Starks, the Mark Newsons, the Johnny Ives, they're the ones that are like pushing themselves. And I think that's why Johnny Ive and Mark Newson are probably leaving, Johnny Ive especially, that he hasn't had that chance. I mean, I can't speak on his behalf, so I apologize if you're listening.
We're having him on next week.
Please call me. Please call me. But no, I mean, it's like trying these different things and being able to do a car or a boot.
Right.
Like that is like that's why we do what we do.
That's true.
And it's all relative. So I think I mean, I do appreciate that. It's something that I have tried to do and pursue in my career, and it's just fun. It just keeps it fresh and just grows the portfolio and the story and the experience.
Yeah. I feel like we would be remiss. I feel like you mentioned it during the first podcast, and so maybe just to wrap up the bark stuff and go on to smart design, because you talked about the better bin, which is something that you worked on recently that like you're very passionate about. You did a talk about at IDC. And so, I mean, like maybe to touch on some of your final learnings from the bark experience of like working at the startup and then transitioning to then being back into the consultancy world.
I think listen, again, like diversity in the work you do, diversity in the places you do. The number one question students ask you is, where should I work? In-house or, should I work for a company or work for a consultancy? And the answer is both. The answer is always both.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Yes. Try different things. Yeah. It's like you have to learn not just what you like, but what you don't like. Yeah. And every experience is good because it teaches you something different and you grow and you get better. Right. And working at a consultancy has been amazing, and working at one now is awesome. Working at a startup was life-changing. Yeah. It was different. It was fast-paced. My responsibilities were different. When I worked at Martha Stewart, here I am. I'm in charge of multi-million-dollar, $10, $20 million businesses. Right. And I'm working for a larger $500 million brand or whatever it is. And I'm working for freaking industry, retail leaders, all these things. Very influential, very important. The work I'm doing, great in the category I'm in charge of. Working for a startup, I am like literally in charge of this thing that has to succeed. Right. Because we have like raised money and we're just trying it out and we're just doing it. And it's like, you better make it work. And the startup is very much like, oh, cool, you're here, you'll do this, go. Yeah. And then you're like, wait, what? I'm like, no, I just told you I've never done toy design before. Remember, I'm like, I have a dog and that's cool, but like never been to a plush factory before, have no idea how cut and sew works. So I'm like, yeah, you'll figure it out. You're great.
You'll figure it out.
You're here. So I think the biggest thing is like learning to adapt to a very different environment, learning to work with very different people, working in a very different workflow, which was much more chaotic. very fresh, very new, and having to find a way to how to influence that, be a part of it, the good and the bad, because there is a lot of both. And just really learning how to adapt to like a very fast-paced thing, because startups pivot.
Yeah.
That is what they do. They pivot.
I mean, that's the whole point of a startup. You're like,
right.
You got all this money, you got to do something with it.
Yeah, and you know what you get? You get whiplash, because all of a sudden you're like, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's like, nope, we're doing that. And you're like, I have worked so hard to go that way. And they're like, no, we're not doing that anymore. Get on board or get out. And you're like, cool, here we go. So it's a ride, and you have to love it. A lot of perks that come with it, but it's definitely a tough gig.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe to bring us up to speed, now you're at Smart Design, which it is a very reputable place. Like, it's, a lot of people dream about working at Smart Design.
Right.
So how has that been now that you are the associate design director at Smart?
So
I mean, how's that transition been?
It's been great. It's been wild. Smart was very much like you said. Like, look, when you're a young designer, it's one of the firms you learn about.
Right.
We turn 40 next year, so getting to work with a firm and a company that with that type of pedigree is amazing. I came from a startup before that, which was 5 years old at the time, and then working for a company now it's 40 years old is amazing. Getting to work for people that are, the founder, David Stowell, is still there. So talking about mentors, I get to now, the newest addition to my list is one of the OGs of ID these days in the modern era, and which is really exciting. And getting to be a part of just like the story on a job level is just really, really exciting. So it's been a great honor to be there. It's one of these places where I never thought I was good enough to work at, because it was just like I kind of held it up on a pedestal, and I was like, that's like the great job. And getting to work there has just been such an honor and such a privilege. So it's been amazing. And it's also been, so with all that said, it's also been really tough. It's a really tough job. It's a really hard job. It's a lot of work. But really exciting work. We're working for you. This is the largest consultancy I ever worked for. We're a company that has 2 offices, New York and London. So we're working across 2 continents on different types of work. We're working across different categories. So Prime and Foresight and Nice Ltd. These were all ID specific, entities. Whereas Smart, like the Frogs and the IDEOs of this world, they've gone into strategy and research and UI. Like, we have just branched out. So the projects we work on are super multidisciplinary. The teams are super multidisciplinary. And that is a whole new experience for me. That's been really rich and exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good.
And then, but while you were there, there was this Better Bin project that came up. And I think it's really cool when like a firm like Smart Design gets involved in something like this, because this is almost like, I feel like it's almost like a Project H type thing. We were kind of comparing it to that in the first episode. And it's like, okay, let's redesign the New York City trash bin.
Right.
Well, I kind of feel like the funny thing about the trash can project is like, I remember this being posted.
Yeah.
New York City wanted to redesign the trash bin, and I guess posted a call for submissions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like no one wanted to do it because it's a trash bin.
See, that's interesting, because I don't think it was that. I mean, personally, maybe. I couldn't frankly think of. We were like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Because it's literally, when you think about. So another reason I got into ID and just design in general is mass. Mm-hmm. I love the idea of mass. Like, I'm going to accept the fact that I am most likely not going to be a famous person, and I'm not going to cut an amazing album, and I'm not going to be in the Hall of Fame. There's no one's going to collect a baseball card of me. So what is
we're making Minor Details baseball cards actually.
Okay, cool. So what is my impact? What's my contribution? And I think for design, that's been this great vehicle where you can actually put things out in the world.
Right.
That is so tangible. and when you get to walk into a store and see the thing that you created, and then you get to watch people buy it or not buy it, which is actually just a really weird experience when they pick up your product and go, no.
I've been there. I've been in the PetSmart. I've been in the PetSmart where it's like, just put that back.
And they're like, hold on, why didn't you buy that? Because this one's on sale. And you're like, it's not great. But living as a New Yorker, you want to be a part of your city and your environment, just anywhere you live. But that's a huge opportunity.
That's true. I mean, you're born and raised in New York. You've been here your whole life. To redesign the trash can must be like a quintessential thing.
That's like the World Series there.
Yeah.
Like
it's literally a touch point that everybody who enters the city will use.
Yeah. There are 8.6 million people in New York City right now. Like, that's crazy. And they're all going to interact with these trash cans. It's like on any given day, like something like 20,000 plus trash cans on New York City streets as we speak. And they're all going to interact with them. It is a vital part of our existence. Living in the city is having somewhere to throw away our trash.
Right.
This is a tool that every person has to use. That is an amazing design opportunity.
So you directed this team that submitted this trash can design, and
whose idea was it to enter the competition?
It was ours. It was so James Krause, who's, like I said, now at Quip. Him and I, we both joined Smart around the same time, and we saw it and we're like, we're doing it. We're absolutely doing it. And it was, I mean, we kind of had, this was like, so here's a great example about building a team, right? Rallying the troops. So here's an opportunity where I'm saying, hey guys, this is an after hours project.
Right.
This is a nights and weekends project. And I need a few good designers who are really willing to roll up their sleeves and throw themselves at this. Because if we win this, if we get to be chosen for this, any of it, it's
iconic. It's iconic.
Huge honor.
Yeah.
So that was very much the first part of this project, was just kind of rallying the troops, getting people excited, and having a point of view. And going back to your thing about the brief, and like, I think I was shocked when in the end, I think only like 200 submissions were actually put out there. And at the opening thing for it, when they had the meeting, there was probably 200 people just in that room alone. And it was an international competition. Wow. It was open to anyone in the world. So the reason why I think so few did it was, if you start to actually read the brief, it's an RFP. It's like directly.
I read it.
It's a proposal.
It's very restrictive. There's a lot of parameters and things you have to follow. I mean, it's New York City. Like, you have to, like, they even talked about, like, hey, you got to make sure that people don't place stuff on top of the trash can. You got to make sure that rats don't get in the bottom of the trash can. You got to make sure it's durable. Like, so many details that you have to cover.
Weight, durability, rat resistance, fireproof, recycling lids.
It was over the top.
Stackable, certain height. It is just a freaking nightmare. And we're like, let's do it. It was a labor of love. We are one of 2 finalists in the competition now. We're actually at we're right at the finish line now. We're waiting to hear who the winner is.
Okay, so they're still deciding, actually.
They're still deciding, actually. We do not know who the winner is, and ultimately it was us and another team that was picked. There's 2 very, very different approaches to it, which is cool that they kind of picked him. Honestly, I could see both of them working in New York. They kind of answered it was kind of fun to see it. It's frustrating when you see that. It's fun and frustrating because you're like, you think that you have the right solution, and then you see someone else do it differently, and you're like, no, that's not that. And like, and you become really kind of like juvenile,
right. Like tribal.
Right. You're like, what is that? They didn't answer the question right. Like, that's stupid. And then, because the fun part is you go, wow, I did not think of it that way.
Yeah.
And like, I never would have approached the problem that way. And,
right.
Man, now I'm like questioning my design.
Yeah.
So it's been a really great and like humbling experience, I think, overall. It's been really tough. And it's also been a really great experience because it's a true collaboration of design and engineering. And one of the things is my favorite thing about working at Smart Design is we have a team of rock star mechanical engineers in-house. We have an unbelievable prototyping facility. It's funny, Reed talks about this dude Ron all the time. We cannot shout out Ron enough.
Does Ron listen to the pod?
I hope so. I'm going to tell him tomorrow, you better freaking listen, because honestly,
I feel like at this point we need to have him on the podcast.
Yeah, no, he's awesome. And it's because we have this amazing team of makers and doers and people who actually know to build things. And a lot of that comes from our history with OXO.
Yeah.
We've had this long-standing partnership with OXO for almost like 30 years now or something.
Right.
And we do design for manufacturing. And we do a lot of design work in general for different entities. But having this constant workflow of actual production, which is funny because I do this whole big loop of like design and trying different things and dog toys. And I'm like, back to kitchen.
You can't escape, Dan.
Can't escape it. But I like food. It's fine. Food, you know what it is? The funny thing is that food is this universal language.
Yeah.
And I love that about designing tools for it.
It's true.
And when I was at Lifetime Brands, I learned how to design gadgets and how to food prep and like how to cut and dice. When I worked at Martha Stewart, I learned about presentation and celebration and making the most beautiful object to serve and cook your food in. And now at Smart, it's somewhere in between. It's like kind of making these incredible, beautiful objects that are both functional and practical, but also have this really great universal solution that everyone can appreciate. So it's kind of been a fun experience to get back into it in a really positive light. And OXO is just the best brand to work with. They're just like, when we were at Lifetime, we were like, talking about patents.
Yeah.
We're like, freaking OXO, man. We're like, damn it, they did it again. So now I'm on the other side of the fence, and I'm like, it's feeling pretty good over here.
Other side of the fence.
Yeah.
Ship it to Lifetime.
Yeah. Already got a few of those patents under my belt, and I'm like, yep, check. So it's been good. No, Smart's been an amazing opportunity again. Super grateful, and I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to work there, and it's just been an amazing experience. So happy that, things are good.
Yeah.
All right.
Amazing. Well, I feel like that couldn't have been wrapped up better.
I think that was, that was definitely a great summation of your career to this point. And we always like to ask some more future forward questions to our guests. And I guess what I'm curious about is like, what do you think the ID industry is going to be in like 5 to 10 years? Like, where do you see it heading?
Wow. Well, according to that Philippe Stark article, it's not looking good.
Done.
Yeah, we're done.
So, we're going into VR, baby.
Yeah, it's not looking great. One of the things I feel like I've witnessed over my time in the field is it's very much this pendulum, which swings between in-house, out-of-house. And, there's been obviously this huge movement of design thinking and design strategy that's kind of infiltrated the business world.
Right.
And it didn't exist. And all of a sudden there's like this tipping point where everyone realized that good design is good business. And that's great. It's great for us. It's great for the field. It's great for the world, right? Because now everything's getting better. So how does that happen then? So you have some companies which outsource it, and some companies which build it internally. And what that happens is you have these teams which maybe swell inside, or then they shrink, or then you have firms that do the exact same thing. And what I've seen happen, and if you look at a lot of design firms, a lot of the middle ones have actually disappeared. A lot of like these small, like mid-sized firms have actually gone away. And what you end up with are these really big firms or these really small firms. And the really big firms are able to take on all these different complex projects because they have all these different disciplines and they have all these people and resources. But then the work we're doing is like corporate. We're working for big companies because we're not cheap.
Right, yeah.
Like these are big, not cheap companies.
Right.
Then you get the small firms, which are able to be nimble and they're hungry.
Okay.
And that's where they can do the startups. So that's where you look at like companies like Box Clever or something like out in San Francisco, which is like, I think, an offshoot of like a former Fuse. I'm saying this wrong, but it's like all these like smaller design firms that didn't exist a few years ago.
More like boutique style.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, but again, like going back to like the 4 or 5 people.
Exactly. Really, really cool. Or what are their names?
Visibility.
Visibility, exactly. And even Prime. Like Prime is able to take on these great freaking projects that I don't think necessarily Smart could take on for different reasons, right? So that's one thing about the firms. The other thing is in-house. In-house teams are just kind of growing in different rates. And now you're seeing these huge teams in really great places like Garmin has this like badass team of freaking designers that I didn't even know about.
Right.
And now I'm like learning about them over the past couple
of
years.
In Kansas? Are they on?
Kansas City.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, in the Missouri side.
Yeah.
Like right on the border, I think. But, we all think of Garmin as like the road, navigation unit.
Right.
But they make switches. They make pedals. They make freaking all these different like components for boats and planes and cars. And there's different divisions there. And it's like this badass team at the IDC conference. They were cleaning up.
Yeah.
And it was just really cool. It's like stuff like that I love.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So, the way the industry's going, I think it's just going like anything else. It's a pendulum. And I think right now you're seeing a lot of really great in-house teams happening. Mm-hmm. You're seeing a lot of startups. And because of that, you're seeing like Bark. We had a really robust team of awesome industrial designers. Like I said, we had James Krause who left. He's at Quip, and Quip was started by 2 industrial designers. One of them from Lifetime Brands. One of them used to work for Echo, and used to work for Fuse Project here in New York, because Fuse Project used to have an office here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, people don't know that. And that was a company started by ID. They have an ID team that's growing. So you're seeing this in-house team moment really being exciting. And that's cool. The consultancies will always be around, because you know what happens? The big companies or whatever it is, they all of a sudden, they're going to build and hire. And then there's a money problem, and then they're going to fire everybody, and then they're going to go back to the consultancies. And it's a vicious cycle. Yeah. But
cycle of design life, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think where I see it going is just it's like I said, it is this wave we're all riding. It's a pendulum that's swinging. You just have to be on one side of it.
I do think that's an important note, because I think we sometimes get caught up in the moment of like, oh, we're in this moment of whatever design trend it is.
Right.
But we forget, like, it's going to swing back. Like,
it's going to swing back.
It's always a pendulum, right?
For sure.
Things change and things are iterative, and they kind of come back. And
right.
It's, but it's exciting. I think it's a really exciting time to be a designer, especially because of startups. Mm-hmm. One, because of startups, and also because, competition. And look, we see retailers closing. That are like feeling the pressure of the big brands are feeling the pressure of startups, where all of a sudden you have like a Bark Box that's like eating Petmate's lunch.
Yeah.
Petmate's is freaking giant pet conglomerate. Now you have this small, company in New York City that's just like cleaning up. Like, that's crazy. So
I've worked at both, so I no comment.
But you know what I mean? It's like, but that's just how it goes. And I think it's exciting, because you're seeing opportunity be created in multiple places. Because now the big company is forced to innovate, and they're forced to pivot. And the small company is able to be nimble and try different things and experiment and push things forward.
I guess that's just like the basis of innovation, just in general.
Totally.
So maybe one more question for you, Dan. What are you excited about in your career, or just in design in general? Like, what's the next big thing for you?
What am I excited about? I'm excited. I think I'm excited to just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Frankly, I'm excited to keep learning, and I'm excited for that next project. I'm excited for that next challenge, and I'm excited for that next opportunity to grow into a direction that I haven't before. Those are the things that keep me going and keep me happy with what I set out to do in the first place all those years ago, just getting into ID. And that's kind of what gets me up in the morning, is that I'm just like, I'm happy. I love what I do. I think you guys do too. And I think everyone that's, come on the show has kind of that same passion. And that's why these things are really exciting. So no, I'm just happy to be doing it. So it's been great.
I love that. I mean, again, thank you so much, Dan, for being on the podcast. I mean, I think you just shared a wealth of information to our listeners.
Absolutely.
And of course, if you guys want to learn more about Dan Grossman, you can check him out on his website.
I need to update it.
We'll link to it and everything.
Thank you.
DanGrossmanDesign.com. And yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up. I mean, you can also follow your Instagram, right?
I need to post more.
That's all.
I'm becoming painfully aware as I go through this conversation with you guys. I'm like, oh, they're gonna ask me about the Instagram again. Oh no. I have like 6 posts.
But maybe this is a testament to the fact that, like, hey, you know, Instagram isn't everything, right?
Right. That's a totally another conversation.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for coming by.
But yeah, as always, I'm at Nick P. Baker.
I'm at iDrawing Receipts.
Peace out.
Later.